Hello and welcome to episode 51 of Match It and the Other Guy. And as ever, Kevin and I are sitting outside my home on the banks of Lake Wylie in Charlotte, North Carolina. Kevin, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. You?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, weather's pretty nice today.
It's cool, it's not humid. It was a beautiful day on the lake yesterday. I took the boat out for a spin around the lake yesterday, which was jolly nice. A little overcast today and perhaps a little sprinkle of rain coming. That's our weather forecast for today.
Yep, I think it could happen anytime today, but yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, we have some chainsaw noise. It's actually gone quiet now. We were just thinking before we hit record, I wonder if we'll be accompanied by the Symphony for Chainsaw and Axe, but it seems to have died off.
A little bit. I bet it'll come in mid-range though, somewhere along the line. So anyway, if we get joined by them, we get joined by them.
Yeah. Our gentle listener and I never know what subject we're going to be talking about when we start our podcast, but we all hope that you do know what we're going to be talking about, at least in theory. So start us off. What is our subject for our penultimate episode of the podcast?
Well, it would be kind of a thud if I showed up here without one, wouldn't it?
Oh,
We'd be staring at each other with blank dismay going, well...
Well, we'd be talking about that, wouldn't we? That,
I guess we would.
That alone would be the subject. Yeah.
Fortunately, I do have something we can go down the path of.
Oh, jolly good.
We've done a lot with different genres of film and such like that. So I thought today we kind of hit on one that I tend to think about this time of year is cult films.
Okay. Well, we talk quite frequently about movies and films. Okay, so start us off with a definition of cult movies.
Well, movies that have a huge following, or a group that really is into that type of movie, has seen it. A lot of these fall into ones that you can see multiple times.
Right.
And that may apply to a group of people, but it may only be your own. There may be ones that are just your thing. You're like, I love this film.
Yes.
The rest of the world doesn't see it quite as well as I do, but I love seeing it again and again and again. And sometimes you know why, and sometimes you don't.
Yes. Yeah. And I know you've got several favorites from the 1980s. We've talked about them on air and off air.
Yeah.
I kind of see where that genre's going. I would say, and we may have mentioned this before, but one of my films that I always enjoy watching is The Duchess and the Dirtwater Fox with Goldie Hawn and George Segal. I love the chemistry between those two together. They work very well on screen. It's just a quirky cowboy movie. There's nothing particularly special about it, but I just like the way those two interact with one another.
Yeah.
And I can watch that over and over again.
And I never heard of it until I met you.
There we go.
So there you are.
Yeah. So how about you? Pick one at random then, and you think that's the one I love watching.
Well,
that movie.
and I believe I've touched on this before in different conversations, even on air. Is like anytime Coal Miner's Daughter's on, I can watch that.
Okay.
And it's a great movie. It's not like it's a bad movie and it's my thing, but it's just one of those that I love it from beginning to end each time. And it doesn't matter if I pick it up mid-range.
Yeah. Well, you're very familiar with it.
I know what it is up to that point,
So
and
tell
I'll
me,
watch it.
if you can, what is it about the movie that makes it so engrossing to you?
I don't know. It's just, and now it has great acting in it because it's Sissy Spacek and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
Play Loretta and Mooney Lynn, and so they just have great chemistry, and I just like the whole story of her rising to fame out of nothing, and such like that. So it's just one of those that sticks with me.
It's very odd how this happens that we are attracted to movies. Another movie that I've always attracted to from the 1970s is Rollerball with James Caan.
Yeah, we've mentioned that one here on some other conversations.
I can watch that over and over again. And again, it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly why, but I am always attracted to that idea of the individual standing up against near insurmountable odds. And Patrick McGowan's TV series The Prisoner, which was set in Portmeirion in Wales in Britain, is another one of those things. That was a TV series and not a movie, but it was the same kind of thing. It's the individual versus the great big machine, if you like. And James Caan, who played Jonathan E. in Rollerball, is very much that same character. It's a completely different plot, completely different setting, of course. It's a futuristic violent game, fictitious game, but it's how James Caan survives the pressure to retire. He keeps being told, you've got to retire from this game, you've got to retire from this game, because he became so good at it that he couldn't be taken out of the game. And the idea of the game was always there is no star of rollerball, because there are constant injuries in the game, and then it's a revolving cast of characters that go through, and it's a release of violent tendencies within society. But once one player became almost invincible, then the supporters of the game started to follow that one character, Jonathan E. in this case, and the corporate world couldn't deal with that. So that's why I like it. It's a little fantasy film, and it was originally it was a short story, and I think the short story was called Rollerball Murder, if I remember right. If it was 10 pages long, that's all it was.
Wow.
And
that's not really a misnomer. A lot of times you'll see great films or stories come out from little just short stories that were in a magazine or something like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that happens sometimes.
You just need the right. I don't know. You just need the right plot or the right character or something to spark the imagination of Hollywood, typically, and let the screenwriters go using those few things, and away you are.
And didn't they remake that in the past 15 years or so?
Yes, and it was, in my opinion, it was just awful.
Really? I haven't seen it. I have not seen either one. I mean, that's another. I've probably remiss at not seeing the first one, and I'll have to remedy that.
Yes, I just don't know why anyone felt a desire to remake Rollerball, and the remake. It's a personal opinion, but in my opinion, it was just absolutely way off the mark in comparison to the original. In fairly recent years, again, there was a remake of The Italian Job.
Yeah.
The Italian Job was an absolute classic 1960s British masterpiece, and why remake it? I'm completely baffled of why that was the case, and even more so because the remake didn't really follow the plot of the original movie.
Oh no, not at all. In fact, I saw the remake before I saw the original.
Okay.
The original has a lot more comedy in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot more tongue in cheek.
Yes.
And
Benny
Hill's.
But I'm going to say it's got your star Benny Hills in it as well. Yeah. Yes. I don't know why that happened. I can only assume it was because the new Mini was out, and
I think it had a lot to do with it.
What better
because the
way to
Minis are the
advertise-
stars of both movies. That's what
Yes.
you think of when you think of either one of that iterations of that film.
I can only assume that was the case. It's all a bit odd. Yeah. Well, okay. Back to you then. Give me another one of your great cult movies that you've loved and continue to love.
One that we have to. I mean, it's the ultimate, the grandfather of them all. Just like we talked about Charles Schultz being pretty much the king of comic strips last time.
Yeah.
The greatest cult movie that will ever be is Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
Because I mean, there's no other film that has had the following and the ravenous fans and the involvement that it has. Now, I'm not a huge part of that group, but I've enjoyed it at different times, and that's what I was kind of wonder how it went over in England, how you remember it over there.
Well, I'm going to put my hand up and give you the confession. You know what's coming. I've never seen the movie. I'm well aware of it, and I've seen clips of it, and I'm aware of its cult status, and I know that when it's shown in, I'm going to pick on New York, but I'm sure it could be anywhere. When it's shown in New York theaters, folks love to dress up as characters from the movie. I don't think it was anywhere near as successful in Britain as it was in the United States. But I know here in the States, we all love any opportunity to put costumes on and dress up, right?
But oddly enough, of course, it is a British product because Richard O'Brien created it. And I'm sure it was a stage play. And then,
it certainly is. Yes, it certainly is a show. It certainly is a stage show. Yeah, but it seems to have been infinitely more popular over here in the States. But I think there's that just desire. Hey, let's all dress up and go to the movies.
Yeah, and it was, I think, 1975 was the movie that became the cult classic that it is now, and it took a year or so, or maybe more. I've seen documentaries on it, but it's been a while.
Yeah,
and then it started being picked up as that we're going to show it at midnight.
Yeah,
and people started showing up, and I think you're right. New York was the the epicenter of all that starting. But then it spread,
Yeah.
all over.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, I don't think you see it as much as you used to. I don't think it's quite the cultural get-together
Right.
that it used to be. I can't think of anyone. In fact, I don't know where they do it here in Charlotte, if they do it on a regular
Well,
basis.
I was thinking the same thing. We're having this conversation now, and I'm sure our gentle listener who may be living in Loughborough over in England will probably write back to us and say, Steve, what are you talking about? The Curzon in Loughborough shows it every week, and we all dress up. I'm guessing that's not the case, but yes, it has been a classic. It will continue to be a classic. Probably
Yeah.
not as much so as it's been, but I'm sure it will continue on. Yeah.
Well, I was brought into it, like many are, in college. That's about the age you'll probably discover it, type of
Right.
thing, especially if they do have local showings. And, as you know, my group of friends I hang out with were very into movies because they worked at the theater
Yeah.
and, we saw everything. But there was a place in Knoxville called the Terrace Tap House
Okay.
where you could, it's one of those places kind of early on, this idea where you could watch a movie and order food. You could order a burger and chicken wings and
Yes.
chicken tenders and whatever, and have a beer, too. So that was the place that would show it in our town, and I would go. I remember going the first time with that group, and then maybe I saw it a total of 3 to 4 times there in the time I was in college and living there afterwards. But one of the times we went was Halloween.
Yeah. Well, that would seem like the
It
perfect
fell on either fell on the weekend or they were just going to show it at midnight on Halloween. And that was the only time I saw where they actually had the cast of characters do the full dress up on stage with the film being shown behind them and,
Yeah,
and did the
cool.
movie as it went.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that afterwards we went to Crystal Burgers, which is a 24-hour. Different parts of the country, you'll know this is kind of like a White Castle, the little burgers. In the
Okay.
southeast, it's Crystal, which I
right.
love to this day. But they're open 24 hours, so you can go anytime. And we went there after the showing, so it's 1:32 in the morning, maybe somewhere around that. And the guy that was playing Frankenfurter was standing there at the counter ordering in his full drag outfit.
Oh, cool.
I was like, that's hard to get out of your memory, but. he was
Yeah.
like, hey.
Yeah. Did you ever dress up as a character when you've been
No.
to a screening?
No. I wouldn't know the script as well as those guys did. I mean, these people have probably seen them hundreds, of times.
Yeah.
But and then later on, I still remember when I moved to D.C. I was just happened to be in a CD store. They were having this really good sale, and it was one of the used stores. But the prices were really good for what they were at that time. So I just went through their whole store and ended up buying a stack of CDs. It was probably
Okay.
like 15 deep or something like that. And I bought the soundtrack. Oddly enough, and it's kind of what made me think about it this time of year, I like to listen to it in October around Halloween. It just
Yes.
kind of ties in, for me. So I do like the soundtrack, and I'll pop it on. Or right now it's digitally in my car, and it's been there for years. So I tend to listen to it more this time of year. And I like the songs from it. They're a lot of fun. Meatloaf was on there, and the main cast of characters all sing in it. Susan Sarandon, Barry Bostwick, and different ones. Richard O'Brien,
What is it about that movie that's made it such a cult? Is it the fact that you can just you sing along to all the songs all the way through it? And
Probably part of it. It's one of
Yeah.
those things, I think it's intangible. I think it's hard to define why it became what it is. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what makes it so interesting is that, because honestly, it was completely panned as a movie. And it's, if you watch it at home without an audience, you kind of get that too. Without that, people talking back to the screen and throwing toast at the screen and spraying water during the different certain scenes and doing the acting out with a group of people, it definitely loses it. There is actually like the DVD. I of course had to get a DVD of it at some
course.
point, probably the 50th anniversary. But there's one mode that you can put it on and you can have the audience participation soundtrack running through it, or
Yeah.
the audio running with the film, if you ever want to watch it that way.
Oh, cool. I mean, you've hit on a very interesting point there. We've mentioned it once already. I think it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly why cult movies are cult movies. They just become this thing. There's something in them. We're not really sure what it is. I suppose it's the same like a best-selling novel. Yeah, best-selling novels. But there are certain books that attract you, attract the reader, and they become firm favourites. And it must be the same. It actually is the same with movies. They're cult movies.
Or one-hit wonders in the music industry. I mean, somebody might be known for one song and that's it, but it's a huge, huge hit, but nothing ever else they did
Right.
even came close to
Yeah.
making it on the charts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to explain.
I suppose the ultimate cult movie for me, and you'll forgive me for getting back to this subject, but we always do, it's got to be the original Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. That is a movie.
Well, there's quite a number of millions and millions of people that go along with you on that.
Yeah. But when you take that movie as part of the wider world of Star Wars, the prequels and the sequels and what are known as the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6, of all the movies that have the Star Wars tag on them, it is Episode 4 that will be the standout classic, I think.
Yeah, and I watched something fairly recently just off YouTube, and it was about how it was to be in '77 when that happened. Because I was, again, we talked about it. I was 8 when it went. So an 8-year-old sees it differently. If you're in, say, college, how it affected your life, and you're now going to see it again and again, and dragging your friends to see it again and again. So yeah, it had a organic growth that just was unbelievably meteoric rise, so fast.
Yeah. And again, talk about, we all know now, I'm struggling here a little bit, because we all know now that Star Wars has become this massive, colossal thing. But when you take Episode 4 in isolation, and you look at the plot, and you look at the characters, I mean, it was a really quirky movie.
Yeah.
Nothing like it, really, before.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sure George Lucas trying to explain it to the studio. I think we talked about this one time. You got, a space monkey and this gold thing that walks around, and what else you got in this? And you want how many million to produce this?
Yes, and, we introduce R2-D2, of course, now is a massive star in his own right, but you're trying to explain to potential backers of the movie, well, we've got this kind of talking trash can, and it doesn't really talk, it beeps a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it must have been a really hard sell. Must have been a hard sell to get that film together. Well, we all know it is because the story is so well documented. But yes, it's that's one of the things that attracts me to Episode 4. As you said, millions of people are fans and enthusiasts of the whole world. Some folks will say, I hate the prequels, and some will say I don't like the sequels, and all of that, whatever. Like it, don't like it, we all have our own opinions, but and I think that's what attracts me to Episode 4, that, like you say, you can pick it up at any point, you know what scenes you've missed, you know what scenes are coming immediately after, and therefore you can just watch it. And another aspect of that movie that I like, thinking of that movie in isolation, but then thinking how George Lucas and now others have had to fit it into the Star Wars universe, is those scenes that kind of it made life difficult, but they're already shot. So what do we do about that? I'm thinking of that one scene with Obi-Wan Kenobi meeting R2-D2, and there's the dialogue exchange is something along the lines of I don't ever remember owning a droid or something, as if he's got no knowledge of who R2-D2 is, but of course he's well known to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. It's that man, that must have
created... How senile are you?
That's right. Boy, that must have created such a problem for the writers. How are we going to get around this, But I like that. I like to pick up on those things and think, wow, that must have created a problem. I bet you really wish you'd not said that.
Well, I mean, we're definitely going to go down a wormhole with this, and fans are going to be like jumping up and down and screaming. But again, it's like, well, Luke is what, 17?
Right.
So it was only 17 years ago that you had these droids.
Yeah.
So, and you aged a lot in 17 years, by the way.
Yeah. That other awkward line, your father was betrayed by Darth Vader. Man, it would have made it so much easier if that line had been taken out of the movie or written in another way. Well, from a certain point of view, that was true.
They're talking about psychologically.
That's right. To then have to go back is like, well, how are we going to write ourselves around this? Now we know what we want to do with the character of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. How do we get around the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi has just said that Darth Vader killed your father? How does that... I think, man, I wish you'd not said that.
Yeah, but I think you just kind of got to go, let it go.
But I like that. I mean, everything has to be based from the dialogue and the scenes that happened in Episode 4. move forward or move backwards in the timeline. You've got to somehow make it all. I won't say seamlessly flow, because, like you say, there are many things that you think, yeah, that's a little bit jarring. But I kind of like that. So that's one of the reasons that I'm so attracted to episode 4 for that reason.
Well, and you can pop in. Speaking of that one, because it's a lighter-hearted movie. I mean, there's nothing too heavy in episode 4 that you can pick it up anywhere, and it's either going to be, fun or action or whatever. It's not like you have to sit there and go, okay, the subcontext of this is you just go with it, and run. And if you've seen it multiple times, you know where you are, and you just pick it up and have fun. But cult movies also lead me into what I refer to as quote movies. You get a group of guys together, and there's some of us that we can have a whole conversation doing nothing but movie quotes. And there's some of those that have just become amazing at how much they've influenced pop culture and stuff like that.
Sure.
And the king of those is Caddyshack.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a group of guys together and we just throw Caddyshack random quotes at each other all day long. And that's been going on since, it came out in like 80. That's been the biggest. You could still, you not see somebody, for 30 years and just that's the first thing you say to them and they'll know exactly, roll right with it.
I know exactly what you mean. For me, there are two movies that do it, but for me, perhaps the greatest of all, in my opinion, would be Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yes.
We found a witch named Ravenna, for example. There's just endless quotes, but we found a witch. Yeah, or anything. There are so many. Of course, it's a good idea, and all of that. It's just endless quotes. And
somebody calls you up, they hear you got an injury or something like that. How you doing? Well, I'm not dead yet. So,
it's getting better.
I'm getting better.
Yeah, and Lighten Up Francis.
Yep.
Is another one.
That is a very good one.
Lighten Up.
It's hard to kind of lay which are the top 5 of all time or the top 10, but that's one, and as we know, that's Stripes.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
We're going to need a bigger. There you go. That's a different one that doesn't have as many quotes throughout, but the one quote is well known.
Yeah.
But and then the years go by and ones will come out, and you almost think it's hard to get one in this day and age that's going to have that lasting power. But like when Office Space came out.
Okay.
Oh, Office Space is full of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just roll quotes off that. Peter, what's happening? the whole Lumbergh thing. And then Napoleon Dynamite became one of the absolute best. Not too many years later.
No, I know you're a big enthusiast of that movie. We spoke about this before on mic and off mic. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one that people get it or you don't. Like my wife just looks at it and goes, "That's the stupidest thing ever." But she does. I'll throw out most quotes at home, and she'll just look at me like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Whereas then again, I can do it with multitudes of my friends, and they'll go, yeah, oh yeah, yeah."
Do you feel that there are cult movies in the pipeline that are coming along, or do you feel like the music of the 1960s and 1970s, we've hit the best music? Or is it just a generation?
I think there's always hope and always a chance.
Yeah.
It is different though, like when things came out, there weren't all these ways of seeing it, so it was kind of like your little secret until it got out kind of thing. You got to think those first few people that went and saw Star Wars that first week or two, how it was kind of like, man, we've discovered something amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the whole world, knows, boom, within, a couple more weeks.
The reason I asked that question is because when we talked about the Marvel movies and the fact that I'll sit down and watch almost any movie because we are both fans of movies, clearly. But I love to go to a matinee show where there's hardly anyone there, and I'll just spend a couple of hours and can watch almost anything. But when I watch the contemporary Marvel movies, it seems to be special effects, more special effects, but the plot I find is almost irrelevant these days. But that's me getting old, perhaps. And dialogue doesn't seem to be anywhere near as intrinsic or as important to a movie as it used to be.
Yeah.
We'll always have Paris from Casablanca immediately comes to mind. There are endless quotes that you can pick from movies of the past, and I know that you need time to get those to percolate through society. But my fear is that we're not going to get that any longer. I think movies are different. It's a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you talk about Monty Python and the Holy Grail. What would it be without the amazing writing of the dialogue?
Absolutely.
You know, that's where the meat of it is, and that that highbrow intelligence thrown into that, and just the joke.
Well, I was just going to say
what they're going to say and how they say it, and who it comes from.
Yeah, it most certainly isn't from the special effects, because those guys didn't have any budget to put hardly any special effects in anything. There's a little bit of dry ice blowing around, and of course the famous coconut halves as the hooves of the horse was a great gag, but the only reason they actually used it is because there was no budget for horses. They couldn't do that. Yeah, so they relied absolutely very heavily on dialogue and intelligent humor.
Well, and that's, I go back to Napoleon Dynamite makes me think of that, because look at, it's such a weird, odd, it's just this like Midwest town, and Uncle Rico's got this old 70s van, and they live in this old ranch house, and it's almost like you can't pick what time the movie is, what era it's supposed to be set in. Is it now? Is it a little bit in the future? Was it 20 years ago?
That's a very clever, how do you describe it, writing tool or visual tool when you're making a movie, is to make it timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you've said that. That makes me think of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where you're never quite sure when this movie was set, or probably more importantly, where it's set.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nondescript. It looked kind of like a European town.
Oh, it very much looks like an English town somewhere to me.
Was it in France? Was it in Belgium? Was it in Germany? Was it somewhere odd in Britain? It didn't look like it was in the States. Yeah, I like that about that movie. It was a very well conceived idea that it was a magical set, in a way. I suppose much of the Harry Potter movies are the same, because, we know where that's set, and we understand it's set in Britain. But when you remove the urban scenes away from the Potter movies, and you're set basically in the Hogwarts school, that could be anywhere at any time. It becomes a timeless thing again.
Yeah.
I think that's very clever to be able to do that, even in writing or in the movie itself. Yeah.
Well, it does. I think it serves a film well down the line anyway, because it's so easy to watch later on.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't feel, you don't feel dated. There's some movies you don't want to watch because
well, you said it with Alien.
It's so out of date. I just don't even want to bother with it right now.
Yeah, Alien, and I agree with you 100%. Alien is set in this, obviously in a futuristic setting, but it's set in a timeless future that it could be 100,000 years from now, it could be 10,000 years from now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, but we know it's a timeless setting. Yeah, I think that's very clever to be able to do that.
Yeah, but I think everybody out there kind of has their own little quirky, films that they picked up on, and why it connected with them. One that they'll see on cable, and it's like, if it's on, I'm having it on. And everybody's different in what they like and the genres they like and stuff like that. I do find that comedies, I think, really tend to fall in that, because you can just pick them up at any time, and it makes your day better.
Yeah.
And that type of thing.
Another movie that I am always happy to watch, very rarely do I see it on networks now being screened, but you can find it, is Logan's Run.
Oh yeah, the original.
The original Logan's Run, yeah, and I
Farrah
think
Fawcett and
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the Sandman name, the guy that played the main two characters.
Michael York.
Was it?
Michael
Okay.
York? Yes.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, you're I'm sure dead right.
But the reason I'm attracted to that movie, once again, it's kind of one guy versus the bad world. How do I survive this bad world? But beyond that, I just have this very special memory of watching it in the Curzon Cinema at Loughborough when I was a kid, and there was hardly anybody else in the cinema. And it was kind of it's one of those magical afternoons. I can remember catching the Midland Red bus, it was called, the classic double-decker bus we have in England, close by to where I used to live. Catch the bus into Loughborough, going to the cinema, watching the movie, coming back later in the afternoon. It was a beautiful day, and just everything. I just remember it, And so whenever I see Logan's Run, it's a special time for me. It reminds me of a special day, I guess.
What year was that? Do you remember?
I want to say it was 70. I'm going to guess it's 74-ish, round about there.
Oh, it doesn't seem like it's that early, but it was pre-Star Wars.
No, pre-Star
Wars.
Yeah.
Was it from a novel or a short story as well?
I think it was from a novel, and I think the book was called Logan's Run.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
I want to say that the author's name was Nolan. Something Nolan. Gentle listener, have a look on Google, and that'll be the answer.
Yeah, I thought it came out later. That's why I was kind of wondering if it was right around Star Wars, because 77 is like kind of, because of Star Wars, became kind of that watershed year of things, that were done that kind of led up to it. But then there's the ones that everybody saw the huge success of Star Wars and just wanted to put anything space related out the next few years.
My feeling is that Logan's Run came out before Star Wars.
And it may have. In any case, it was written before then anyway.
Yeah. And there was I do remember there was a follow-up novel to it called Logan's World, which I don't think was ever made into a movie. I'm not aware of it.
So. But do you recall that Logan's Run was made into a TV show here in the States?
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
A totally different cast of characters.
Yeah.
Or different cast of people playing the characters.
Yes.
So nobody from the movie, I don't think.
It was a little bit like the Planet of the Apes TV series versus the movie and the book.
Yeah. And I think that got the green light after Star Wars. And it was like, this is a space thing. We can put it on TV.
Yeah.
We'll carry over this movie. And not sure about that, but I think that was it. And I don't think it had a long run, but I remember watching it. Anything space related that era was going to be on my TV.
The book for Planet of the Apes was Monkey Planet by Boole. I think it was originally a French book that was translated into English, and then Monkey Planet became Planet of the Apes. But I do remember reading Monkey Planet, and I thought, gosh, this is a very different story to the movie, where the apes were wearing contemporary like jeans and check shirts, that sort of thing, Yeah. Odd. Yeah,
but a lot of stuff happened in that. I think probably Logan's Run was probably created around that same time as maybe Soylent Green or something like that. Whole dystopian future type things, maybe.
Ooh, I want to say Soylent
not
Green.
too far off.
Was that Charlton Heston?
The movie was.
Yeah, okay. I think Soylent Green was. I want to say Soylent Green was probably 68, 69.
I think it was.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah.
But if you think about the grand scheme, it probably wasn't too far.
Well, that's
depends
right.
on when they both were. Wasn't Soylent Green a book too?
I'm not sure about that. I want to say yes, but if it is, I've never read it.
I want to too, but I could
but
be wrong.
if we're saying that Soylent Green was 68, 69, and the next year was the 1970s. So we're not that far apart
heading
from
into
each
it
other.
and stuff like that.
We really?
It just reminded me
Yeah.
of Planet of the Apes is a dystopian society too. So
Yeah, I don't know why I'm attracted to that sort of stuff. Yeah.
they've all become classics. So
Yes. The one curious thing that always stays with me about the movie versions of Planet of the Apes, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, I think Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, it had the most odd music. I don't know if you can ever remember that music.
I remember. I've only seen the first one, but it's
Right.
that very harsh.
Yes, it wasn't really orchestral music. It was a very different take on an audio soundtrack, but they're all the same. They all use that very, I wouldn't say odd or quirky, but very different, but it kind of jarring.
Yeah. Somewhat like John Carpenter.
Yes.
His music, from Halloween into The Thing, Christine, they all have that very distinctive John Carpenter music, which I think he wrote all, if not most of it himself.
Yeah.
I mean, that Halloween music will never be forgotten. I mean, that's very, very, it's like Jaws. I mean,
Absolutely.
it ties you right into the film, takes
Yeah.
you right back.
It just goes to show how easy it is to overlook the huge importance of the soundtrack of a movie. That when a soundtrack is working really well, you're not really aware of it.
Huh? Yeah.
But when it jars, boy, it jars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Star Wars took kind of the opposite thing of, here we are, we're going to put this, scientific or sci-fi movie with, this crazy story that Lucas had come up with, but he did put in beautiful orchestral music.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was all John Williams stuff, wasn't it? John Williams was the composer for that, and of course the composer for Jaws. Probably the best in terms of cinematic movie music that we've ever had, I think, John Williams. Yeah.
Quite a career.
Well, on that note, I think we're just about out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, I don't think we begin to scratch the surface on this topic. But
That went incredibly fast. That
it
half
could
an
be
hour.
3 days of straight talk on something like
That's
this.
really.
But we'll wrap
Yeah.
up for today.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed. That was another fun topic. I always like talking about movies, and it's funny. It's odd when we start talking about these things, and you start to put the pieces in your own mind together like a jigsaw puzzle. That idea of dystopia and the hero or the anti-hero of the piece. Yeah, I can see that I am attracted to those movies, and I never really thought about it at the time. But you're right. There's a constant theme running through that.
True.
Kind of cool. Gentle listener, join us again for another episode of Matchett and the Other Guy. For now, bye for now.
Bye for now as well. And you throw out that penultimate term. We'll see who picks up on that.